I'm really excited to get into this topic. This is actually one of the first things that I really started teaching about ERGs and to ERG leaders. This also applies for program managers, and I highly, highly recommend that you all pass the message on to the ERG leaders within your organization, because this podcast episode is actually going to be a little bit different. It's going to be more so like, I don't want to say a workshop format, because obviously this isn't Zoom, so it's hard to do the workshop piece, but I'm going to walk you all through reassessing the current mission statement that your ERG or your ERG program may have. So that's kind of what we're going to go through. And like I said, this is always recorded, so you're able to share it with your ERG leaders tomorrow when it goes up on our YouTube channel. So, okay, when it comes to mission statements, first, what's really important for this conversation is for us to finally dive into how an ERG is like a small business. And once again, I've never really gone into this, like explicitly stating what are the connections between a business and an ERG program. Now, this is important because I say that a lot. I just have to be more definitive in my language and stop speaking so passively. I know I've been in different trainings when it comes to people talking about ERGs, and we speak about it almost like it's completely different from a business mission statement. We talk about it very differently in the space, and I don't want that anymore. Really, exactly how a business approaches their mission statement and their vision statements, we need to do the exact same thing. So when I say your ERG program is like a business, thing one, let's paint the picture here. So there's a small business, that's what your ERG program is. And I use the words program very strategically because I don't want us to keep approaching ERGs in this individualized way where each ERG is doing its own thing. That is not a program approach. And honestly, that will just it is resulting currently in a ton of chaos in the ERG space. Every ERG is doing their own thing. There's no consistency. And even from the member perspective, it's not a clean look. It's hurting your membership. It's hurting your engagement. So I'm saying the business in this case would be your ERG program as a whole. Now, when it comes to the customer, so there's a small business, obviously you're serving a customer. Who you're serving, those are the employees within your company who identify as members of your community. So just like a business is trying to sell to their customer, your ERG program is trying to quote unquote sell the employees within the business, within the company, because now it could probably get confusing when I say business and company. So your ERG program is trying to sell to employees within the company to engage with their program. It's the same way. So if you all are into sales, like if that is your full-time role, you're going to start to see, as I talk more and more about ERGs being like a business, wow, just like we're selling to people, we have to sell to members or to employees, not even just to members, but to employees in general, why engagement in our program is important, right? And currency, just like you're selling things for money within a business, the currency would be their attention. You want more attention, therefore the product that they're buying is engagement. So hopefully you all are following. Just do a reaction if this makes sense so far when I'm saying the connection between ERGs and business. Okay, cool. I see a thumbs up. No, yeah, I see a thumbs up. So we're good, but just know we'll go into this more. I'll have a whole session on this where I elaborate more. Long story short, that needs to be said because now I'm going to talk about mission statements, but a lot of the language I'm going to use is coming from the business world, and it's things like customer and things like that. So that's why I say it's really, really important that we understand who our customer is and what this business is, what the product is, all of those things, right? So it's gonna come together here. Now that we have those basics down in terms of the connection between ERGs being a business, now we'll go into mission statement, just a basic definition, and also differentiating that from a vision statement. This is one of the things that was glossed over for a lot of ERGs when they started. Even if they did create their mission statement, a lot of people, just average everyday people, like, ERG leaders they don't have a clear understanding of what mission statements and vision statements are. So they're really kind of left to their own devices to come up and to define it for themselves and then just to put a statement together. And most of the time it's something that's just done so we have a brief description of the ERG. And I think that that's where a lot of people end up landing when it comes to mission statements is feeling like it's just a description of what the ERG is, which is so much more than that. It serves such a bigger purpose. And also another popular misconception is that mission statements and vision statements are the same. I've heard ERG leaders say, oh, we didn't do it because, I mean, they're basically the same thing. Not at all. All right. So we're going to define mission statements. I always like to use an actual definition. So that's what we start with, and then we'll build on it from there. So the definition of a mission statement is a brief statement that describes the organization's purpose and the reason for its existence. It includes its products or services and it provides and its target audience. It's usually short and focused on the present. That's the definition. I'll say that one more time because I really want it to resonate. And as I read this, think about how this translates into your ERG. A mission statement is a brief statement that describes the organization's purpose and its reason for its existence. It includes the products and services that it provides and its target audience. It's usually short and focused on the present. So many things to unpack there, but first let's go into a vision statement so we understand the difference. Actually, no, let's unpack it. Let's unpack it first. Thing one, so the mission statement, it talks about its purpose. A couple of things that I really want to point out in that definition is that it's focused on the present. Mission statements can change. It's focused on where we're at now and the impact that we're looking to make now, right? And it also said its reason for existence. That's why I'm saying that mission statements are so much bigger than just a description, because really when members or when just employees in general hear your ERG's mission statement, they should understand why this ERG is in existence. Why does it matter? What are you all trying to do? They should be able to look at that mission statement and it should tell them everything that they need to know in terms of if this is something that I want to be part of, or even more so, it should motivate them to be part of it if they are part of that target audience, right? So we'll go into it. We'll go into the formula, all the things. That's the mission statement. The vision statement is completely different. Here's the definition for vision statement. A vision statement is a statement that describes the organization's long-term aspirations and where it hopes to be in the future. It's usually more visionary and forward-looking, and it's focused on the organization's goals and values. One more time, for those taking notes, note takers are change makers. I'm big on taking notes. So vision statements are statements that describe the organization's long-term aspirations and where it hopes to be in the future. It's usually more visionary and forward-looking, and it's often focused on the organization's goals and values. The biggest takeaway from this is that it's a long-term aspiration. I went with the example of the plane last week, so we're going to continue that just for some context for you all. An ERG program is like a plane flying over the ocean, right? This illustration goes kind of deep, but we're going to keep it surface level today. That being said, the vision statement is the destination. That is where the plane is trying to go. And it's aspirational because that's really almost where you're saying, like, big picture, years down the line, what do you want this program to be able to achieve? You're really dreaming big here. And that's what the vision statement is about. The mission statement is more so what's the word that I'm trying to think of? Like the landmarks that are along the way are really what the ERGs are going to do to support getting to that destination, more or less. That's what it would be in this sense. A lot of people would then say, okay, well, how does that differ from OKRs and things like that? The OKRs are measurable. Those are measurable steps that would take you to that vision statement. So that's different. That's the OKRs piece. But the mission statement really speaks to how ERGs are supporting your vision statement. Are we on the same page so far? Give me a reaction if this makes sense. Okay, cool. I see a thumbs up. So we are good. So that being said, let's take a step back. Again, we have a basic understanding of vision statements and mission statements. Once upon a time, it used to be that every single ERG has a vision statement. Actually, if I'm being honest, it's not once upon a time. It's still very much a thing within the ERG space. Vision statements should be approached on a program level basis. Your ERG program should have a vision of where it's trying to go. From there, each ERG that exists within that program, so if you have multiple ERGs at your company, you all should be going towards that vision, but have different mission statements because you have different target audiences. Granted, your target audience is still technically employees, but these ERGs are for people from these underrepresented communities. So each ERG should have a mission statement that supports that broader vision statement. This is super key because most programs aren't doing it, if any, if I'm being honest. So this is really important to know. Right now, can you imagine? I mean, we're saying the ERG program is like a plane, or even it's like a business. If that's the case, you have all these smaller groups within it that are trying to go different places. That is not going to result in you all actually going anywhere. So that's why it's super important. The program has a vision statement. Each ERG has a mission statement, right? Okay. So we kind of talked a little bit on why mission statements matter, because ultimately that's really what this whole conversation is about. But really, people should be able to look at it, and just after reading it, they should understand what your ERG is about. It should motivate them to want to join. It should provide clarity, not just for them on what your ERG is about, but also internally, even for the ERG team, making sure that everyone's on the same page. Think of it almost as a theme for the ERG. Once again, mission statements can change. Actually, not even can, but they likely will. They are things that you'll experience along this journey. They're ways that the ERG is supporting getting to this vision, but ultimately, your vision stays the same. That destination is the same, but the mission statements, they change. They update over time. It's really focused in the present. What are we focused on as an ERG? The issue with most mission statements at a lot of organizations now, if I had to point to the top three, well, yeah, a top three, this works. Thing one is that they're inconsistent across ERGs. So one, ERGs are, even when it comes to the format, right? You stating what your mission is. One ERG might have it as a really long statement. I've seen some mission statements like paragraphs and paragraphs. And another mission statement is like a couple of words. Even that format there, this disrupts that program level approach. I talk a lot about uniformity across the ERG program. So something really simple that can be done, and once again, this is about to get into the workshop part, but something really simple that can be done with mission statements to help drive this program level approach is even just assessing the formats of the ERG mission statements. Is there consistency? And I'm gonna show you soon, I promise, the formula that you can use. This is used in big business, and you'll see it in many different businesses across. I'll give you all even some examples. We'll go into the formula, but is it consistent across ERGs, the format? Thing two, it does not clearly lay out your target audience, or if anything, it might even focus on the wrong target audience, but it doesn't clearly lay out who does this ERG serve. When someone reads your mission statement, they should know whether or not, like, they should read it and say, oh, wow, this is something that speaks to me. Or if they're an ally, it should still speak to them technically, or to the community, at least that they're hoping to serve. But a lot of mission statements don't do that because, once again, how are we approaching it? We're approaching it currently as a description of what this ERG is. It's way different, way different. The third thing, it does not clearly lay out how the ERG is going to help their target audience, that underrepresented community, to reach a certain goal. And that's almost like that part that moves people, because it's one thing to say that this mission statement is speaking to me. It's another thing to say that this mission statement is really helping me to understand how this ERG is going to help me, going to benefit me. A lot of statements, if they're just informational statements, they're not going to tell you that next step. How is this going to help people who join your ERG? And once again, this is beneficial both for the members, because now they're understanding, when I join this ERG, this is what I'm expecting, but also even for your ERG leaders. Let's say that this is a disability-focused ERG. If everyone is trying to accomplish a different thing within the ERG leadership team, one person is really focused on representation and like increasing representation. Another person is focused on better driving impact within marketing. Another person is focusing on doing something else for that target audience. You're not going to get much done, especially when you think these are volunteers, they have limited time. working together on a mission statement collectively is going to take you so much further. Okay. Before I get into the formula, I'm going to, and I've never done this before, so you're all are going to have to let me know if this works. I'm going to play a video, and this is something, in case we do have ERG program managers on here for, I have used this literally within ERG leader trainings where I'm walking them through and helping them to understand what the formula is. I've used this exact video, and I'll provide the link and things like that within the article that's coming out tomorrow.
Right away, that makes them interested in what we're offering. So I'm going to take you through an
Yay,
exercise.
okay.
Take a 3-part sentence, or it could be multiple sentences, but it's a one-liner. It's something you can say.
Okay, I'm playing it. I'm about to play it since you all said that you can hear. Take notes as we do it, but he's really going to go into the formula right here. I'll break it down afterward, but this is the formula that you all need to know. Keep in mind the connection between an ERG and a business. So this is a business person. He's talking about best business practices when it comes to a mission statement. But keep in mind for you all and for ERG leaders, when he talks about your customer, he's talking about people joining your ERG. When he's talking about your product, he's talking about what you're trying to get people to do. You're trying to get people to engage. So follow this. I'm only going to play I think it's like a 3-minute clip. And from here, we'll pause, we'll talk, and then we'll continue it. So we'll go from here.
Really quickly. And somebody says, what do you do? I want you to say this, right? And it works like this. The first thing is we want to ask ourselves, most businesses struggle to talk about what they offer. We have a process that helps them clarify their message so companies get growing again. What we want to do in our one-liner, there's 3 parts. It's identify your customer's problem. This is the first part of your one-liner. You're going to open with the problem. When I walk on stage and give a speech, I don't say, my name is Donald Miller, and I've been living here in Nashville a long time, and I'm married to a wonderful woman named Betsy, and we have a chocolate lab named Lucy, and we have a dog named Jude Carter, and I'm very glad to be with you today. Why? It doesn't start a story. I walk to the center of the stage, and I say, we have a serious problem. We're wasting money on marketing, and you have no idea who I am. And I don't care if you don't know who I am, because it's not about me, it's about you, right? I open up with your problem. That's what starts a story. A story is a character that has a problem. And the sooner you can get to the problem, the sooner you can get to the hook. And now they're interested. You see? And so, if I'm selling a product, then I want to start with that problem because it makes the product valuable. I say, you know how you sometimes drop your phone in the toilet? Well, I invented the toilet net. Okay, that's not a good example, but I stole that from some comedian. Anyway, so you want to identify your problem. So what is your customer's problem? And you want to say, most people struggle with, or do you know how a lot of people feel about this? Or a lot of people are afraid to go to the dentist because they're afraid it's going to hurt really bad. So when you say, hey, what do you do for a living? You say, well, you know how a lot of people hate going to the dentist because they're afraid it's going to hurt really bad. We actually have all the modern technology. You don't feel a thing. Most people, because of the laughing gas we use, they actually love going to the dentist. They come even when they don't have a toothache. Right? So you want to identify your customer's problem. Second, you want to explain your plan to help them. Now, this is where you can mention your product, how your product differentiates in the market. But basically, you want to explain, here's what we do that solves the problem. So it's the problem, and then what I do that solves the problem. And then finally, third, the successful ending to their story. Most people struggle with this, but we created this thing so they don't have to struggle anymore and they actually enjoy life. And it looks like this for them. What is that? It's the summary of a story. But it's a summary of a story that you're inviting them into. So those are the 3 parts of your one-liner. Now here's our one-liner. Most businesses struggle to talk about what they offer. We have a process that helps them clarify their message so their company starts growing again. That's my one-liner. And I memorized this. And when the Uber driver says, what do you do? I say that.
Okay, I'm going to pause it here because that is a lot to digest. And I also realized it's my first time listening to it without the visual or the audio. I mean, that was so backwards. This is my first time listening to it without visuals. And I will say, looking at the video, it's a lot easier to digest everything that he just said because there's also graphics that he was showing. So like I said, I'll make sure to link this, even if you all want to check it out and like have it bookmarked in the meantime, you can go to YouTube. It's the Story Brand One-Liner Exercise by Donald Miller. And honestly, if you really, really want to plug and you really want something, what changed my whole perception of ERGs is when I read Donald Miller's book about, I think it's called Building a Story Brand or something about story brand. You'll know it when you see it. But through that, he talks about how you can use storytelling to drive business. Same exact concepts for ERG. So let's break down what he was saying. There was 3 parts in what he was saying that you need to know to create your mission statement. And he didn't even get into the good part yet. I'll just tell you, we're going to go into it in a second, but there's 3 things that you need to know to be able to craft a mission statement. Thing 1, you have to understand what your customer's problem is. And in this case, that would be, once again, employees at the company who are from the underrepresented community. Ideally, that's like your ideal customer, because once again, we're talking about ERGs, but also we can loop in allies in there as well. In general, actually, no, I take that back. Really, when we're talking about our target customer is people from the underrepresented community. Allies, because they want to support the community, they will come. It's very important that I clarify that, because I've seen ERG leaders really take it and run with it. ERGs are for people from these underrepresented communities. Allies are there to support. Have to re-clarify that. I'm probably going to cut that out of the recording entirely. So anyway, long story short, you have to know who your customer is. That's thing A. And then also, what problems are they experiencing? Now, as part of the workshop, what I normally do when I have this training is I will have ERG leaders list within the company, like as an employee who's part of this underrepresented community, what are some things that you're experiencing, or what are some problems that are coming up? Is it microaggressions? I'm not going to go into a list, because I really want ERG leaders to really elaborate, talk about their own experience and not just pull from what I'm saying. But everyone here who's part of an underrepresented community, I'm sure, can come up with a plethora of things that people from those communities are experiencing. Okay, that's the first thing that's super important, coming up with that list internally. Then I also like to say externally as well. So we all know ERGs, when they have business impact, I mean, it impacts the broader world. When you think about down the line, when all ERGs are having these business impacts, and now businesses are really able to better serve underrepresented and marginalized communities, that type of impact is going to have. But part of that starts out with outlining what are some things that this business can potentially contribute to, or even if not, like just coming up with an exhaustive list. What are some things that this community is experiencing present day? And keep in mind, again, mission statements change over time. So every couple of years, maybe even on an annual basis, you can take a look at your mission statement and see if it still feels accurate, if it still feels relevant. Because if we're being honest, like what we might have put, and I don't know, this might be an interesting conversation, but first thought that comes to my head, maybe it's wrong, what we might have put in 2019 that, for instance, the Black community needed. So let's say it's a Black ERG. What we might have put in 2019 may have been completely different for what we'll put after 2020 for a mission statement. Because once again, it has to be relevant to what the community needs. So it might be time to reassess your mission statement. Does it even hit on these things? Anyway, that was the first thing that he mentioned. The second thing that you need is you need to outline what your ERG does to serve that target customer, or in this case, that community of underrepresented employees. Outlining that is going to be the next important thing. So you all have to understand, now that we have a list of these problems, what's one that we're going to tackle? That's going to be one of the key things here. We'll get into it. What is the thing that we're going to tackle this year? And how does this ERG plan to help members in that way, right? So maybe if I say representation, that's something. So let's just say, yeah, let's go with that as one of the topics that the ERG is saying, this is what we're focusing on this year. Okay. Well, now we're going to outline, here's a few ways that we are helping to improve the representation here. for employees. That has to be made clear in the mission statement. So once again, as people look at this, they can see, okay, this is what this ERG is about. This is why it's existing, at least in present, because that's going to be the focus of the ERG. And even then, it's so powerful because then people who aren't part of the ERG are able to understand where they fit into the equation. So now someone who's part of the recruiting team is able to say, oh, wow, this is really aligned with what I'm doing. It's going to make them that much more likely to work with you all, even if it wasn't recruiting, like no matter what it is, at least now they can come up with ideas on the connection between what they do and what you do, what your ERG is about at present. So many ERGs lack this clarity on what they are about at present and how they hope to serve their community at the end of the day, because really the idea is by joining this ERG, you're going to be in a better place. That's why representation is kind of it's a strong point, but there has to be something that's almost directly tied to someone as an individual. I know that can go into a conversation because obviously more representation would make someone feel better as an individual, but just in general, like, is there a professional development aspect to this? Or how am I going to benefit now if I join your ERG? That's ultimately kind of the vibe that we're going for here. Okay, because I almost always run out of time, I'm going to give you all the formula because I said I was going to give it. So the formula, and you can look this up. I did not make it up. I say this all the time. All the things I talk about, I get from business development books, and I just make it palatable for the ERG community so we understand the connection here. We help X do Y by Z. So XYZ formula. I don't know if that's what it's called, but that's just the easiest way to reference it. But what does that mean? We help X. X in this case will be your target audience. So what is the community that we're serving? Once again, that is the underrepresented community. It's not so much the allies. The only exception that I give to this, and I mean, just know, I talk about ERG things, but I don't have everything 1000% figured out. And in this case, I'll say, when it comes to allies, like how far do we go? When I say, okay, are we really looping in people who have close loved ones who are part of this community, even though they're not part of the community? So for instance, for the military community, something that I've noticed that within the culture of the military community is that people who even haven't served, but their loved ones, so people who have had close friends and family who have served, I've noticed that they really feel that, not even they, but I'll say like both the people who have served in the military and their loved ones, that is the community as a whole. So excluding those who haven't served as your target audience just because they haven't served, when granted they have still felt the effects of having their loved one go away, even if you're a military spouse, then obviously there's a lot of emotions that go through that, and how can we better support them? So to that degree, I'm like, okay, that makes sense that we loop that in. And that's honestly feedback that I've been given over time and just a learning that I've had. Now, for other communities, for instance, with communities of color, it can definitely be very touchy where you're not a member of this community. So therefore, are we really hoping, are you our target audience, or are you just here to uplift? Personally, I think that the military community is like, and maybe like the disability community is one of the communities where it's like, okay, we can broaden it out to those who like support, but I don't necessarily know how I feel. And maybe we can open it up for Q&A too. I don't necessarily know how I feel about saying allies are part of the target audience. Because once again, as we create this list of problems that our target audience is experiencing, we're really talking about these underrepresented communities. So it's like a debate that I've been having internally every now and then when I do this presentation. People, they bring up valid, but at the same time, I also know that sometimes when we bring in allies into the conversation, especially when it comes to the mission statement, it can lose the impact for the actual community members themselves. So I don't know, I'll put it out there. And like I said, if you'll have thoughts on it when we get to the Q&A portion, sure. Okay, all that to say, we help X, Y, by Z. We help this group of employees. It's Women's History Month, so we'll go with the women community. So we help women at X community do Y. So in this case, Y would be the goal. We are helping them to reach a specific goal. Once again, we've outlined problems that this community is having internally. The flip side of that is, okay, what type of goal are we helping them to reach? What's the opposite of those problems? And creating a list of those as well as part of that workshop too. So we outline what are some of the problems, but also what are some goals that people from this community internally want to achieve? And what is the one that we're focusing on this year that we're helping them to achieve? So we help X do Y by Z. Z in this case would be, what are some offerings, some core offerings of your ERG that helps your target audience to reach their goal? So an example of that, for instance, a really good one that comes up a lot. Ooh, okay, we'll go with this one. Because I've seen a lot, especially with Pride, LGBTQ, ERGs, that psychological safety is a big touch point. So we help employees from the LGBTQ community to experience a sense of psychological safety through networking and allyship resources. Because the only reason I put allyship there is because a huge part of experiencing psychological safety is making sure that others around you are helping to cultivate that environment. So that's a really good example of a mission statement. I'll say it again, just for those who are listening. So we help employees of the LGBTQ community at this company experience a sense of psychological safety through networking and allyship resources. So now the ERG knows these are the core focuses of the year, like promoting psychological safety for this community is our focus. And networking and allyship resources is how we're getting there. That's what we're doing to help increase this. And then, like I said, as the next year comes around, that's when you can reassess what's most relevant. Maybe coming out of that, the ERG might notice that, okay, maybe now everyone's feeling that sense of psychological safety. And we can see that by increased engagement in the ERG. We can see that maybe if you're working with your people ops team and you see the engagement survey data, that there's a skew there, which is good on the positive end. So, okay, additionally, now maybe the focus might be professional development resources, like they don't feel invested in, the community doesn't feel invested in. So now that becomes the next focus for the year. Your mission statement should be able to speak to what you're trying to do. And now whoever reads that mission statement, once again, they're going to be able to say, wow, this resonates with me. One, I mean, it's already great because your ERG leaders who are coming up with these mission statements, they know what their community needs. So it's already gonna resonate. But then even more so now people are able to see this is how this, like I understand how joining this ERG would benefit me. No more obscure mission statements that are really descriptions that cannot be a thing anymore. Especially we talk a lot about wanting to increase engagement within an ERG, or even just grow our membership. This might be the starting point. Like if people don't even know really what your ERG is about, and for us in the ERG space, we might be like, well, obviously they know, but it's not obvious. We have to make it obvious, and a mission statement can be a powerful tool in doing this. Once again, I always like to leave time for Q&A. So what I'll do is we will continue this. We'll do a part 2 of this next week, where we continue to talk about not just mission statements, but even like the difference between mission statement and vision statement. I'll actually probably go through the actual workshop that I go through. Let's do that. And then you can invite your ERG leaders, if you're so interested and so inclined, to have a free workshop. Take a look at your mission statements. That's what we'll do next week. I'm really excited because I haven't done a live workshop in a while, and maybe I'll do it as a video format for you all too, because why not? So real quick, I'll just say, because one thing I want to point out, after you have your mission statement, a couple things that you need to do. One, ERG leaders should know their mission statement. A lot of ERG leaders, I mean, they can't tell you what their mission statements are right now. Every time I do this training, everyone's like, when I ask how many of you all know your mission statement by heart, no one does. Your mission statement is your one-liner to convince people to engage in the ERGs. So when people ask you as an ERG leader, what is this ERG? You should be able to just commit by memory what your ERG mission statement is and repeat it back. Because once again, that's going to convert people to want to engage and want to participate. So memorizing it, repeating it, that's thing one. Two, teach it. So make sure that the entire ERG leadership team for that specific ERG knows what the mission statement is, because they will then serve as ambassadors and telling other people what the ERG is about. Talk about it. So open every member meeting with your mission statement. Occasionally within channel, you can post and like remind everyone this is what our mission statement is. Write it. So also, even when it comes to your Slack channels, maybe you pin it in there so it just lives in there. You want to make sure it's like at the top of your website as well. So make sure that it's seen and easy to locate. So that really is where your website should start off with, because it is that statement that's going to hook people in.